boats are very cool to sail in a variety of conditions. Sailed most other boats over the years, and it's the boat I keep coming back to. You can go out there and race hard and fast in any condition, which I don't think you can do in any other boat. And the competition is friendly, but very competitive and a very high level without having to do it every day of the week. So that's kind of the draw.
In this fleet, you've got some of the best dinghy sailors in the world with, you know, the likes of Nicholson and Mike Martin and Howie Hamlin. Those guys have proven themselves in all aspects of sailing.
The 505 class is a great class because it has a very high level without having the Olympic contingent in it. You know, most of the people are non-professionals, but about as high a level as you can get without being a professional. And quite honestly, I think if you had more professionals here, they would be, you know, I don't think they'd be dominating the events. I think they would be, you know, in the mix and fighting it out with the rest of us. Yeah, it's not a class you just jump into and kick butt in. You know, it's something you got to earn your stripes.
Welcome to the 52nd running of the SAP International 505 World Sailing Championships. Held in Adelaide, South Australia, a region famous for its world-class wines and seafood. The championships have attracted some of the best sailors on the planet, including 505, 18-foot skiff and international 14 world champion Howie Hamlin. Ian Pinnell, winner of 35 world, European and national championships, and Australia's greatest ever sailor, 9 times world champion and 2 times Olympian Nicholson. Sailing is conducted on the ocean on the beautiful waters of the St Vincent Gulf, and this is the 3rd time the Brighton Seacliff Yacht Club has hosted the World Championships. The members have done everything to ensure that this is the perfect event. Race 1 of the SAP 505 World Championships was sailed in difficult conditions, with a blustery southerly providing big pressure and direction changes. Gusts as strong as 25 knots were felt, as were lulls as low as 12 knots. We also saw shifts of up to 30 degrees and lumpy seas, making challenging conditions for all the competitors. There are 2 courses, today's being the short course. Competitors tack up into the wind, round the top mark past a clearance flag and come downwind through a gate where they can elect which way to pass. At the top mark for the first time, Olympians Nick Adamson and Steve Bordeaux from the US led from Ian Pinnell and Steve Hunt of the UK, and third was Mike Holt and Carl Schmidt, also of the US. As you can see from our 2 leading boats, in windy conditions 505's power reached to the bottom mark rather than running directly. Also moving up on the first reach were 2 local boats, Sandy Higgins and Paul Marsh with the Blue Spinnaker, and Robbie Jewson and Jordan Spencer sailing on the Commonwealth Bank boat. Into the mix were Howie Hamlin and Fritz Lanzinger of the US, and the Danish team of Jan Sagman and Morten Ramsbæk. With the black kite there is the young team of Parker Shin and Gareth Williams. Parker from the US, when not sailing, spends his time as an international fashion model, but sailing is his first love. Tough conditions are playing havoc for some of the backmarkers, but for our leaders, it was a battle royale in the shifty conditions. At the top mark, it was still Adamson and Bordeaux in the lead, but here you can see Adrian Finglas and Tom Watson, who had moved up to 5th by this stage. For Leg 2, after the competitors clear the gate, they again sail back upwind to the top mark. They then reach to the wing mark, jibe, and then reach to the bottom mark. The first reach was tight and made it difficult for spinnakers. But some of the Australian boats went for them early. and pretty soon the majority of the fleet had gone for the kite. But it was still very difficult to fetch the wing mark in the challenging conditions. Hasso Plattner and Peter O'Leary charged through some big waves. Unfortunately for some, the conditions were too much, this being one of the many retirements on the day. For leg 3, after completing another beat and a run, competitors sailed one final beat to the finish. Locals Higgins and Marsh flew down the second reach and then made some big gains working the shifts to the right-hand side of the course upwind and rounded the top mark for the final time with a 30-second lead over Holt and Smith and Pinnell and Hunt. The next Australian boat to round was also a local boat, the team of Nicholson and Spencer having a great debut at the 505 Worlds. Also in the mix was US superstar Howie Hamlin, fresh from winning the International 14 Worlds in the US. At the bottom mark for the final time, it was a big gap for Higgins and Marsh, who by this stage were lapping back markers. Victory in race 1 for Higgins and Marsh in their home event. Second was Holt and Smith and third Pinnell and Hunt. Race 2 was held straight after race 1. By this stage the wind had stabilised and was less shifty, but it was still 15 to 20 knots and still very lumpy seas. 505 start using a gate start rather than a line start. That means a pre-selected boat will sail upwind on port tack and each of the other competitors pass behind on starboard. It provides for clean starts but puts a premium on boat speed and height. At the top mark for the first time we saw Adamson and Bordeaux again to the fore. This time they were pursued by Jens Fidel and Jonas Tellen of Germany. Queenslanders Adrian Finglas and Tom Watson led the second bunch around in fourth. Adrian had finished second overall at the Etchell World Championships last year. Also in the bunch you can see race 1 winners Higgins and Marsh and the winners of the pre-worlds Mike Martin and Jeff Nelson, who had suffered through the first race with a broken pole launcher. Conditions remained difficult with strong gusts catching some competitors out downwind. To the top mark the second time it was still Adamson and Bordeaux from Findel and Tellen, but in third now it was Martin and Nelson who had powered through on the first run. Again the reaches were tight with competitors not hoisting spinnakers until well clear of the top mark. Sailing a 505 is a joy and you can see they really enjoy a strong breeze. Martin and Nelson had passed Adamson and Bordeaux. They absolutely flew uphill in the strong conditions, winning by 45 seconds. Third was Findel and Tellen, and Higgins and Marsh also had another great result, as did the Danes Salgman and Ramsbach, and Kevin Torr and John Bell of the US. At the end of 2 races, our leaders were Mike Holt and Carl Smith from the US on 5 points, and second was Nick Adamson and Steve Bordeaux, also of the US, on 6 points, and the local boat, Sandy Higgins and Paul Marsh, on 9 points. Now let's hear from our winners of the first 2 races.
It was a good day off. We're obviously a lot happier. I didn't have such a good lead up to the regatta, but today was fantastic. I'm absolutely knackered. You can hardly walk. Oh, it's still fairly open. It's only early days. As I say, we didn't have such a good lead up to it, but we're a lot happier now, and I think we got the boat speed, and I'll just see what happens.
We had some breakdown issues sort of pre-first race, and our pole launcher line, our pole launcher cleat exploded on the first reach. So we really, downwind we'd lose 4 or 5 boats every run, and we'd pick up 2 or 3 every beat, but it was a losing proposition, so we kept moving back in the fleet. We got something jury-rigged in between races, and so we were fully operational.
We're a big team, so we definitely like to sail on the breeze, and in California it's pretty windy in the summertime, so we definitely have Us, along with the other West Coast teams from the United States, have a lot of experience in the breeze. So anytime you win a World's race, it's always a bonus.
Race 3 was held in similar conditions to the previous two, 13 to 18 knots from the south, and again there was plenty of pressure and direction shifts. The seas were a little flatter, but it was still a challenging day. Today's is the long course. Competitors sail upwind to the top mark, pass a clearance buoy, and run down through a gate where they can elect which way to round. Up the first beat, it did seem that the left side of the course was going to be favoured, but towards the end of the beat, the wind moved to the right and brought the boats from that side of the course through. First around the top mark were Bill Cuneo and John Warlow of Queensland, Australia. They held a few seconds on Martin and Nelson, and Adamson and Bordeaux from the US. Also coming out of the right were Doug Hagan and Mike Duffield from both the US and Australia, and Jeff Robinson and Mick O'Donnell, who were flying high early on. From there, the fleet was tightly bunched. Many boats electing to jibe early on the run, looking for a favourable shift. Thompson and Johnston choosing to do a bear-away set. There was plenty of action on the first run, including an altercation between SAP man Hasso Plattner and the Commonwealth Bank boat. Germans Martin Jorge and Hans Heinrich Rix pushed the leaders in every race. For leg 2, after the competitors clear the gate, they again sail back upwind to the top mark. They then reach to the wing mark, jibe, and then reach to the bottom mark. On the second beat, race 1 winners Higgins and Marsh were flying, picking every shift in the variable conditions and leading around the top mark by 15 seconds. Right behind them were 505 legends, 3-time world champions Chris and Darren Nicholson, who had moved up 9 places. The first reach was a little deep. Adamson, Martin, Tor and Cuneo were all battling each other and elected to go high early on rather than take a broad reach to the mark. Adamson jibes early on top of Tor. The next group fighting for a top 10 spot includes Holt and Smith, Pinnell and Hunt, and the race leader's brother, Malcolm Higgins and Andrew Chisholm. Not enjoying the day were the Slam boys in the high 20s. The second reach provided absolutely fantastic conditions for 505 sailing. In the middle of the fleet, the racing was tight as crews fought for position. For leg 3, after completing another beat and a run, competitors sail one final beat to the finish. The Nicholsons, who haven't sailed a 5.0 since last winning the Worlds in 2002, were still in second behind Higgins and Marsh at the top mark for the third time. Third was Adamson and Bordeaux, and then a bunch of competitors. All of the leaders electing to jibe before setting their spinnakers on the final run. Back in the fleet, we can see the team of Kuba Polak and Piotr Zoltowski from Poland. Unfortunately for them, they were having one of their worst races of the regatta, as were Chris Tattersall and Greg Clark from Queensland in the green boat. It's not all about the blokes either. The German team of Helen Fischer and Angela Stenger struggled in the breeze, but would excel later in the week when the wind dropped. Up the last work, a match race developed. The Nicholsons had gained a 1-second lead by the bottom mark, but Higgins and Marsh had got back in front and clamped a tight cover on their compatriots. In the end, it was another victory for the hometown favourite and second for the legends Chris and Darren Nicholson. Still in the top 10, we can see Jorg and Rix just pip Hamlin and Lanzinger, and then the second local boat of Jewson and Spencer. Our top 3 remain Mike Holt and Carl Smith of the US, Nick Adamson and Steve Bordeaux, also of the US, tied on 9 points, and in third, Sandy Higgins and Paul Marsh, the local boat, on 10 points. Now we cross to Higgins and Marsh, the winners of race 3.
Yeah, sort of. We decided to start late today and we got off the line really well. Got ourselves in a good spot, but missed a few shifts going out the first work. Found ourselves back in the pack and had to work really hard downhill next time and got ourselves back into it. So yeah, we're pretty happy once we got back up towards the leading bunch and worked on the front guys and snagged the lead and never looked back, I guess.
Yeah, except for that last little bit with Nico's down the loop, but yeah, they're pretty good sailors. So
But
come back
everyone's
and-
certainly knocking on our door. There's some guys out there going very quick, and I guess it's only early days at the moment, so we're happy to have a couple of wins under our belt, but as I say, we're keeping a lid on it and a long way to go.
Yeah, it's getting pretty close there, and Nicholson's are trying to get through us, so we just sort of make sure we keep them in the bag and not let them through. So yeah, it was tight and it was good to get in front of them.
Yeah, well, that's certainly very, very good sailors. So to beat those guys, we're pretty happy with that.
Yeah.
You know, we had some different sails on board today, but we're hoping that we're learning to sail the boat faster. You know, like we're so raw at the moment compared to a few years ago. And you know, you've got to pull the right strings at the right time, and hopefully once we get that going, then we can look a bit more at the breeze. Like it's still really early days for us. We were discovering that we were really rough at tacking. I actually said I really don't think we need to get into a tacking drill here, because you know we've done about 4 tacks in 4 years, and I figure they've done some more.
Although Marshies weren't that quick. He fell off the wire yesterday and had to swim, did you know? Is that the truth?
Yeah, I reckon so.
Yeah.
Much lighter conditions greeted the competitors for race 4. Another 2-race day, the lighter conditions were sure to suit the Europeans. Houston and Spencer had gate boat duties after finishing 10th the previous race. Also heading to the right were Martin and Nelson, looking for a clear place to start. And it was to prove a successful move with a wind shift to the right, favouring the competitors on that side of the course. There are 2 courses, today's being the short course. Competitors tack up into the wind, round the top mark past a clearance flag, and come downwind through a gate where they can elect which way to pass. Martin and Nelson were the first to round the top mark, followed by the Super Danes of Jan Seligman and Morten Ramsbæk. Third was Hasso Plattner and Pete O'Leary. Hasso is one of the owners of SAP and therefore the principal sponsor of the event. Following them were a large pack of boats, including the gate boat and the winners of race 1 and 3. Downwind in the lighter conditions, it is quicker for the 5-0 to run to the mark rather than reach, and the runs are a perfect tactical opportunity to pass boats. The Super Danes are the masters of light wind running and use their skill to move into the lead. Second were Martin and Nelson. For League 2, after the competitors clear the gate, they again sail back upwind to the top mark. They then reach to the wing mark, jibe, and then reach to the bottom mark. The Danes were also quick uphill and extended their lead. Our 2 lead boats had gained some good ground on the pursuers, which included the Germans George and Rix, and then Hamlin and Lanzinger and Plattner and O'Leary. Also having a great race were the French team of Bertrand Loyal and Laurent Niveau. They jibe at the wing mark in 6th place behind Plattner and O'Leary. Then it was a string of Australians at the jibe mark, including Finglas, Malcolm Higgins and Jewson. Nice jibe. And still the big names keep coming.
Con este guatón pelado sin vergüenza, peludo en otras partes, pero aquí él le interesa. Cocino 10 vienesas, me siento en la mesa a comerlas una por una. Y mira, me agarra la tula.
For leg 3, after completing another beat and a run, competitors sail one final beat to the finish. Martin and Nelson in second, showing us how it's done. As are the Super Danes with perfect technique at the front of the fleet. On the final run, Martin and Nelson elect to split off from Seligman and Ramsbæk. As do Pinnell and Hunt in 5th, but not Plattner and O'Leary. If it seems like your trouble's coming, get faith. Finglas and Watson misjudge the ley line and come in just under the mark and have to tack twice to clear it. If it seems like your trouble's coming, the bottom mark, the Super Danes maintain their position from Martin and Nelson, but Hamlin and Lanzinger have moved into third. And they stay in that order with the short fetch to the finish. Fourth is George and Rix, who are very happy with the result. Hasso Plattner scored a 7th and the first Australian home in the lighter conditions with Finglas and Watson in 9th. Race 5 started after the conclusion of race 4, so again was in light conditions. The gateboat was Ebby Rosen and Ollie Wenrup from Sweden. In nearly every race, the boat from Zimbabwe elected to start first, coming off the pin and heading to the left as fast as they could go. This did ensure they got clear air, but it could cost them if the wind swung right, which it did in this race. There's a fantastic close-up shot of a boat moving along nicely. Patrick McCosh and David Horsfall of the Zimbabwe tack and look to be well placed. However, it was Kevin Cameron and Jerry Manders sailing their boat, the Full Monty, who worked to the right and led at the top mark. Second around was the gate boat of Rosen and Wenrup, and the French team of Loyal and Niveau were third. The winners of race 4, the Super Danes Salgman and Ramsbeck, were next in front of Parker Shin and Gareth Williams. The light conditions didn't suit some of the heavier teams. Looks like Cuneo and Warlow couldn't find a path at the mark. With very little tide, most boats went looking for pressure on the run, most choosing to do a bear-away set. By the bottom mark, the Swedes had moved into the lead, with the French team up to second, whilst the Full Monty boys were back in third. The light conditions kept the fleet tightly bunched, and early in the racing led to some very busy mark roundings. Greg Illman and Andrew Slater, sailing into the red, were having one of their best races. Rosen and Wenrup from Sweden continued to lead at the second top mark, but the Aussies were back in second. At the wing mark, the Super Danes were moving forward. They were up to fourth. Some of the crews that had excelled in the windy weather are back a little in the lighter winds. Mike Holt and Carl Smith worked hard to gain some places on the jibe, as did Finglas and Watson, though theirs looked a little messy. Whilst there wasn't much wind, it was a beautiful day for a sail. For Hamlin and Lanzinger, this was one of their worst days. Howie has a formidable record in 505s, winning the World Championships in '99 and finishing second 6 times previously. Kevin Torr and John Bell were having a great regatta, but this race was their worst. On the final run, the Swedes extended their lead. The Queenslanders stayed in second and the French were third, with the Super Danes fourth. Moving into fifth were the Germans Boris Herrmann and Julian Kleiner. Our 2 heavy air race winners were back around 9th and 10th. By the end, Rosen and Wenrup had a lead of nearly 2 minutes, but it was a yellow boat 1-2 as the French moved up to second and the Super Danes grabbed third to take the overall lead in the regatta. Michael Quirk and Jeff Lang, who had won the Australian Championships the week before, had their best race so far with a 7th, and Higgins and Marsh grabbed 12th to move to 3rd overall. After 5 races, competitors can drop their worst race. That means that Martin and Nelson from the US lead from Salgman and Ramsbeck, and Higgins and Marsh are in 3rd place overall. Now let's hear from our race winners, the Danes in race 4 and the Swedes in race 5. Okay, now today you had a fantastic day. You won the first race, and you got third in the second race.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So what was the difference for you guys today?
Definitely the lighter wind, and we changed the jib, so we had a Dragon jib instead of a Kevlar. And in general, we are pretty good in the medium to light stuff, and we definitely benefited for the more regular shift that we see in the previous races. We didn't have the situation, except from the first beat in the first race today. There wasn't any of those very big shifts where you could get caught on the wrong side. It was more like the small shift you could tack on, and we did a lot of tacking, and that was probably the secret.
So you became gate boat for the second race.
Yeah.
Do you think that was an advantage to help you get out?
Yeah, it was. We just hit the corner and got straight to the mark, so that was really easy going race for us.
It's always, most of the times it's an advantage to be a pathfinder.
So how did you find the conditions?
Quite shifty, big shifts, but with a steady ground wind, so we didn't tack on everything, just went for the corner and tried to sneak up there.
Yep. Race 6 was a very strange day weather-wise. The breeze was a very unstable pattern prior to the start, but it did settle into the west-southwest for most of the race. The wind was light and there were some big direction changes. Today's is the long course. Competitors sail upwind to the top mark, pass a clearance buoy and run down through a gate where they can elect which way to round. Up the first beat, most played the shifts, but it was those who worked the left side of the middle of the course who came out in front. Christian Kellner and Robert Roth were the first to round the top mark ahead of Tor and Bell and Higgins and Marsh. The Super Danes were back in 14th at the top mark, just in front of Martin and Nelson and Jewson and Spencer. First run saw Tor and Bell move to the lead, and the first of many course changes we would see throughout the day. The light winds again kept the fleet close together, but the big movers downhill were the Super Danes picking up 7 places. Carter Jackson, president of the Australian fleet, rounding just outside Hasso-Plattner. For League 2, after the competitors clear the gate, they again sail back upwind to the top mark. They then reach to the wing mark, jibe, and then reach to the bottom mark. The second work saw some marginal trapezing weather, a huge shift to the right, and the Super Danes pick up another 7 places to take the lead. Tor and Bell held second. Back a couple of places, Higgins utilises some clever steering to hold 5th. The Nicholsons too were on the charge, sneaking through a gap under Plattner and O'Leary before the reach. A big shift compressed the front of the fleet coming into the wing mark, allowing Hamlin and Lanzinger to get to 3rd and the Nicholsons to get to 4th. For the rest, it became carnage, with boats rounding 5 deep and the occasional crash. The holes in the wind were a sign of what was to come at the finish. bottom mark for the second time saw another change of course, and the Super Danes with a big lead. The compression before the wing mark also meant for a busy rounding. For leg 3, after completing another beat and a run, competitors sail one final beat to the finish. This time the left paid. The Danes still led, but Hamlin and Lanzinger were through to second, and Boris Herman and Julian Kleiner to third. It was still marginal trapezing, which is very uncomfortable for the crews. The final run was again a light wind affair, but it was nothing compared to the final beat. The Super Danes crept over the line in first, a minute in front of Hamlin and Lanzinger. Herman and Kleiner grabbed third as a huge hole enveloped the fleet. The all-female team managed to pick up fourth, and you can see the new wind coming from the southeast on the horizon. Out of the right come the Commonwealth Bank team, who pick up 20 places on the last beat and had a huge team of spectators cheering for them on the day. And then it was a mass finish as the boats come from every direction. After 6 races, Saugman and Ramsbach lead from Martin and Nelson and Hamlin and Lanzinger. Okay, let's cross to race 6's winners, our friends the Danes.
I think we were around 12, 13 at the first mark, and then we were 5th at the bottom, and then on the second upwind beat we had a really nice right-hand shift, and we took the lead from there on, and then we stay in the top.
You guys are leading the World Championships with 3 races to go. What do you think has been your success? What's made you guys the leaders?
Well, obviously we are better in the light conditions than in the strong breeze, but I think that our really forces that we are quite good at anything. We're not specialists in either strong or light breeze, but
consistent.
Yes.
And it normally helps us if the wind shifts, because it seems like we are a little bit quicker to adapt than most other people are. But we are not the fastest boat out there by far, but still we managed to win some races.
It is a bit stressful, but I think we are fairly relaxed. We've been in the game for many years, so
yeah,
we're just enjoying it.
This is our 10th Worlds out of 12 possible, so it's not the first time we try to sail in a fleet like this, and it's, yeah, you have to enjoy some moments and you have to be a little bit on the beat sometimes, but mostly you try to stay focused, and yeah, that's been a key.
Another beautiful day, but again the wind was light. Starting in an 8-knot sea breeze, it built slowly to 12 knots by the end of the race. The gate boat was Mike Martin and Jeff Nelson sailing the black boat. There are 2 courses, today's being the short course. Competitors tack up into the wind, round the top mark past a clearance flag, and come downwind through a gate where they can elect which way to pass. Off the start, the wind was in the left, but about 5 minutes after the start, it swung back to the right. The perfect scenario for the gate boat.
Swimming in a blue world, calling at my new world.
And sure enough, at the top mark, it was Martin and Nelson in the lead. They were 15 seconds in front of Doug Hagan and Mike Duffield, the joint US-Australian team. Then it was the Queenslanders, Cameron and Manders, and the locals, Jewson and Spencer, and Higgins and Marsh, split by the female team of Helen Fisher and Angela Stenger. Hamlin and Lanzinger and the Super Danes were back in 15th and 16th.
There's
beautiful conditions made for a spectacular sight as the fleet worked down to the bottom mark. Most boats running square, but a few choosing to wire reach. Martin and Nelson continued to lead, but Higgins and Marsh had charged through the fleet by reaching.
All I wanna do is play my guitar, sing about the good.
The Super Danes had also gained, picking up 6 places and moving to 10th. Hassel was having another good race, rounding the bottom mark in 15th with a lot of big names behind him. For League 2, after the competitors clear the gate, they again sail back upwind to the top mark. They then reach to the wing mark, jibe, and then reach to the bottom mark. Upwind, Volker George and Friedrichs Hartwig of Germany make a great sight. By the reach, our leaders had cleared out. They held a 1-minute lead. Higgins and Marsh had put on a new main and were charging in second, as were Hagen and Duffield and the Commonwealth Bank boys. The first reach was again fairly broad, resulting in boats taking several different lines, and the second reach was tight. Fisher and Stenger were enjoying the lighter breeze. At the jibe mark, there were plenty of opportunities to make gains, as evidenced by Waller and Cuneo. Thompson and Johnston led the former junior world champions Andrew Hewson and Kane Sinclair. Pete Woolman and Phil Webb enjoying their home waters. For Leg 3, after completing another beat and a run, competitors sail one final beat to the finish. Martin and Nelson led the fleet to the right ley line and head to the top mark for the third time with a 45-second lead. Higgins and Marsh jibe away in second, followed by Hagen and Duffield, and then the Germans Hermann and Kleiner. By now, the Super Danes were 6th, hard on the tail of Jewson and Spencer. Fisher and Stenger had dropped back a little as the pressure built, but they were still sailing beautifully. Here, the Nicholsons demonstrate how to launch a kite at speed with a perfect set. It was an all-the-way win for the US team of Martin and Nelson, but Higgins and Marsh had slowly been reeling them in, and at the end there was only 20 seconds in it. Third was Hagen and Duffield, fourth Hermann and Kleiner, and fifth the Super Dane team of Saugman and Ramsbach, who picked up Jewson and Spencer with superior running speed. Another 2-race day meant conditions for race 8 were identical to those at the finish of race 7, an 8 to 12 knot sea breeze. However, whilst the right was the big winner in the last race, the left was favoured this time. Most of the top boats picked the difference and made gains to that side of the course. Here you can see Jono Bannister and Matt Burns, both fairly new to the 505 and making big improvements this season. With such a big fleet, the boats spread right over the course. Approaching the top mark, the Super Danes were having a great battle with Hamlin and Lanzinger and Quirk and Lang. Hamlin and Lanzinger seemed to be enjoying the lighter winds, and along with the Danes had superb height and speed in the flat water. Behind the lead 3, there was a huge number of boats hitting the mark together. The Swedes Rosen and Wenrup were just in front of Higgins and Marsh and Pinnell and Hunt. Malcolm Higgins and Andrew Chisholm were fourth around the top mark and worked very hard downhill. Getting a clear lane in a big fleet was difficult. Hamlin and Lansinger jibe early. Quirk and Lang were having their best race of the regatta, as were Malcolm Higgins and Andrew Chisholm. Into the bottom mark, the Super Danes already had a sizable lead. Not even a spinnaker problem on the drop could cost them. It looked like the retrieval line got caught, but it was quickly fixed. Quirk and Lang came through to second. Hagan and Duffield were having another good race, as were Tor and Bell. Unfortunately, Mike Martin and Jeff Nelson weren't. At the second top mark, Seligman and Ramsbeck continued to lead from Quirk and Lang and Hamlin and Lansinger. Further back in the fleet, it wasn't all plain sailing, with the Queensland boys falling out of their boat. At the front, the Danes were feeling some pressure from Quirk and Lang, who had cleared out from Hamlin and Lansinger. Next were the Swedes, the Poms, the Aussies and the Germans. The second reach was again a little deep, with competitors jibing to reach the bottom mark. The Danes put a tight cover on the fleet and extended their lead a little. Quirk and Lang were feeling a little pressure from Hamlin and Lansinger, and Rosen and Wenrup moved forward all race. The Danes' downwind speed meant they weren't threatened, and again they extended their lead on Quirk and Lang, who also moved away from Hamlin and Lansinger, who managed to hold on to their gap over the yellow boat of Rosen and Wenrup. The Danes' win meant that with one race to go, they could not be beaten. They have won their first World Championships. After 8 races, in first place overall and unbeatable, Seligman and Ramsbeck, from Martin and Nelson and Hamlin and Lansinger. Another light wind day, starting in 5 knots and building to 10 knots. With the World's One, the Super Danes were on the shore, not bothering to sail. But there was a huge battle for second overall, with only 1 point separating 3 boats, Martin, Hamlin and Higgins. Today's is the long course. Competitors sail upwind to the top mark, pass a clearance buoy and run down through a gate where they can elect which way to round. Again, the left side of the course was slightly favoured over the right. Finglas and Watson in slam looked to have messed up their start. Jens Fidel and Jonas Tellen of Germany came out of the left to lead at the top mark. Second were the women's team of Fisher and Stenger, third Hamlin, Lansinger, and fourth Quirk and Lang. Carter Jackson and Ian Taylor were also right up the front. The light winds again made for tight roundings. Martin and Nelson were deep and looked like losing second overall. 8-7 is Paul Greenhull and Jeff Keogh, sailing with a borrowed main, borrowed jib and borrowed spinnaker. Pinnell and Talent continued to lead from Fisher and Stenger in a German 1-2, and Hamlin was third from Tor. The bottom mark 4 wide, Jackson made it hard for Jewson and Spencer to give room to the two British boats. Both the Higgins boys were having a good race. But it was sure busy at the rounding. For Leg 2, after the competitors clear the gate, they again sail back upwind to the top mark. They then reach to the wing mark, jibe, and then reach to the bottom mark. Upwind was again marginal trapezing conditions, and it was hot work for all. Pinnell and Talent continued to lead, whilst Hamlin and Lansinger just crept past Fisher and Stenger. The light winds kept the huge fleet relatively close and made a spectacular sight. Into the jibe mark, our leaders were unchanged, but behind them there was a tight battle. Pinnell and Talent cleared out on the second reach, stretching their lead to nearly a minute. For Leg 3, after completing another beat and a run, competitors sail one final beat to the finish. The women's team managed to wire across the bottom reach and round with the gap on 4th place Tor and Bell. Hamlin and Lansinger made some big gains on the leader and closed to be right on their stern at the top mark. With one more run and one more work, we had a great battle for the win. And with perfectly synchronised kite sets, it was sure to remain close. Fisher and Stenger shoot the top mark in third. Back in the fleet, a little Higgins and Marsh round in 10th. Second overall looks to be out of reach, but not third. Queenslanders Earl Alexander and Ian Gregg leave Phil Gray and Dick Machin. Time for a new wetsuit, perhaps. At the bottom mark, the Germans have extended back to a 6-second lead and they cover tightly up the final work. In the end, they lead start to finish and manage to jump to 7th overall. Hamlin's second place is enough to move him to second for the 7th time at the World Championships. Tor and Bell pick up third and place 6th overall, edging Pinnell and Hunt into 4th, but they finish 4th overall. Quirk and Lang score a 5th, Fisher and Stenger drop back to 6th, and Higgins and Marsh 7th moves them up to 3rd overall. Jewson and Spencer have another strong result to pick up 10th overall at their first World Championship. Ebba Rosen and Ollie Wenrup from Sweden had another good race. But Mike Martin and Jeff Nelson had a disappointing last race, dropping them from 2nd to 5th overall. Now let's look at the overall placings. Coming in first, Jan Sagman and Morten Ramsbeck of Denmark. Second for the 7th time, Howie Hamlin and his crew, Fritz Lanzinger. Third was the locals, Sandy Higgins and Paul Marsh. Ian Pinnell and Steve Hunt from Great Britain were 4th. Mike Martin and Jeff Nelson from the USA in 5th. Kevin Tor and John Bell, also of the USA, in 6th. Jens Fendel and Jonas Tellen from Germany, 7th. Nick Adamson and Steve Bordeaux of the USA in 8th. 9th was Boris Herman and Julian Kleiner, and 10th was the second Australian boat and also locals, Robin Jewson and Jordan Spencer. Now let's cross to hear from the SAP 505 World Champions, Jan Sagman and Morten Ramsbeck of Denmark. Congratulations, Blake. World Champions for 2007. You must be ecstatic. Tell us how you feel.
Well, slowly it's we're starting to realize what this is about. After the racing yesterday, actually my wife and I went off to some friends here in Adelaide where we had a barbecue, and it was very quiet, so I didn't know about all the fuss going on the harbour while Morten was taking all the interviews and stuff like that. But now I'm beginning to realize what it's about.
What about just then? You've had presentation, we've gone through, and the crowd went berserk. That must have been quite an experience.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, this is the 10th World we've done, and we've always been to the prize giving ceremony, and we've always seen the winner and sitting there at the table. Said, I mean, we hope that could be us, and now it's finally our turn to do it, and that's a big thing.
This is something we all dream about as young kids, and I guess actually fulfilling the fantasy is just something very special.
It certainly is. As I said in my speech in there, it has been my aim to do this, and I've been hoping to do it, but deep inside there has always been doubts, of course, but now we did it. So
I think the major thing was that we had a pretty good speed, but the key thing for us in this regatta was that we were probably a little bit smarter than the rest of the group. It seemed to be like a herd mentality. Sometimes we did our own decisions, went the other way than the rest of the group, and we benefited from that. And from race 4 to race 8, we were consistently very, very good. And that was simply because the wind was a little bit shifty, and it was a little bit lighter, and it was a little bit more tricky. And we played that game extremely well, and that was definitely the difference.
And so ends another World Championship. It was almost the perfect event with great sailing, great camaraderie and plenty of fun. Thanks to all our sponsors, particularly SAP, and thanks to all the officials and volunteers who gave so much of their time. It couldn't have been done without you. We'll see you in Italy in 2008.